Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Which one of the following began with the Dandi March? Home Rule Movement, Non-Cooperation Movement, Civil Disobedience Movement, Quit India Movement. The answer to this is Civil Disobedience Movement. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the PIB makes a reference to the Dandi March, which is why we have taken this practice question. What is this Dandi March? Dandi March is also known as the Salt March, Dandi March and the Dandi Satyagraha. This was an act of non-violent civil disobedience led by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. The march lasted from March 12, 1930 to April 6, 1930 as a direct action campaign of tax resistance and non-violent protest against the British salt monopoly. What is this Dandi March? When you look at the British Empire, they've come up with some of the heinous laws in the past. We did recently discuss about the Rowlatt Act, and one such similar law that we currently have is the salt tax introduced by the British Empire. What exactly happened? The salt tax which the British came up with basically makes sure that they had a monopoly on the collection, manufacture of salt. They even in fact levy taxes on the collection of the salt as well. Salt happens to be a very important component. If the government so imposes taxes on salt, this ultimately would hit the poor sections of the society. In order to overcome this, in order to make sure that the British do not impose the taxes on the salt, what they started was the Dandi March, also known as the Salt March or the Dandi March. What was the impact of the Dandi March? There was mass civil disobedience spread across India. Millions of people broke the salt laws by making salt or even buying illegal salt as well. So the salt satyagraha had galvanized large number of people. Indian population was galvanized, and ultimately people started producing salt, violating the laws so imposed by the British. So remember, when we speak about Dandi March, it gave rise to the civil disobedience movement. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following are the wetlands according to Ramsar Convention? Peatlands, oases, rice paddies, reservoirs, salt pans. The answer to this is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to the wetlands. The Ramsar Convention on Wetlands uses a broad definition of wetlands. It includes all lakes and rivers, underground aquifers, swamps and marshes, wet grasslands, peatlands, oases, estuaries, deltas and tidal flats, mangroves and other coastal areas, coral reefs, and all human-made sites such as fish ponds, rice paddies, reservoirs, and salt pans as well. These are some of the examples of wetlands. So remember, we have the Ramsar Convention, the Convention on the Wetlands, and this happens to be an intergovernmental treaty that provides the framework for the conservation and wise use of wetlands as well as resources. This was adopted in the Iranian city of Ramsar back in the year 1971. It was adopted in 1971, but it came into force in the year 1975. This can also be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. Why should we protect the wetlands? That is because wetlands are amongst the most productive ecosystems. They provide some of the most important essential services, and they also supply fresh water as well. Wetlands are indispensable for countless benefits and also for the ecosystem services as well, and they also provide food and building materials. They are also place of biodiversity. They are also place of flood control. They also help in groundwater recharge, and they also help in climate change mitigation as well. Because of which, what we are supposed to do is to protect wetland, and what the Assam government is currently doing is it is reviving the wetland because all these wetlands are of greater importance. So if we look into the practice question, yes, peatlands, oases, rice paddies, reservoirs, salt pans are all examples of wetlands. So the answer to this would be D, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to Academy Awards or Oscars. It is given annually by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. They are presented for artistic talent and technical excellence in the international film industry. A.R. Rahman was the first Indian to win the Oscar award. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 1 and 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to the Oscars. Let us try and understand what are these statements. When you look into the first statement, yes, it is given annually by the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Science. This happens to be the right statement. So the first statement is right. When you look into the second statement, yes, they are presented for artistic talent and technical excellence in the international film industry. So the second statement is also right. So the Academy Awards, which is also known as the Oscars, are awards for artistic and technical merit for the global film industry. So these awards are regarded as some of the best prestigious and significant awards when it comes to the entertainment industry in the United States of America. And the third statement reads, A.R. Rahman was the first Indian to win the Oscar award. This statement is wrong. Why? That is because it is not A.R. Rahman. It happens to be Banu Athiya, who was the first Indian to win the Oscar award for costume designing. Her work in the film Gandhi backed her the 55th Academy Award in the Best Costume Design category. She collaborated with a number of renowned filmmakers in the Hindi film industry and abroad, and she is the only Indian woman to win the Oscars as well. The list of other winners include Satyajit Ray, A.R. Rahman, Rasul Pokutti, and Kulcha. And when we speak about Oscar awards, they are presented for artistic talent. They are presented by the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. It was awarded for the first time on May 16, 1929. The name of the trophy is also known as Academy Award of Merit. What is the context? S.S. Rajamouli's RRR has created history by becoming the first Indian feature film to win an Oscar. The film's Natu Natu soundtrack by M.M. Keeravani was awarded the Best Original Song Award at the ongoing 95th Academy Awards in Los Angeles in United States of America. These questions can be asked in your preliminary examination. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to wheat blast disease, which one of the following statements is correct? Wheat blast is caused by the fungus Magnaporte orge. It was first discovered in Brazil in 1985. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is both. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Indian Express makes a reference to wheat. And when we speak about wheat, one of the diseases that is often impacting the yield of wheat happens to be the wheat blast disease. Wheat blast is a devastating fungal disease that usually threatens the food safety and security, mostly in the tropical areas in South America as well as in South Asia. The disease, yes, it is caused by a fungus called as the Magnaporte orce, and this can spread through the infected seeds. It can also survive on the crop residues as well as by spores that can travel long distances in the air. These Magnaporte orce can also infect many grasses. It can also infect barley, rice, so on and so forth as well. Where was this disease first identified? It was first discovered in Brazil in the year 1985. It also spread to other South American countries as well, and this in fact impacted large number of countries, and the yield significantly dropped over a period of time. When we speak about what is this wheat blast disease, it is a devastating fungal disease that can significantly reduce meat productivity in South Asia. This is the healthy seed. Then what we have is the emerging infection and complete infection as shown in the image. And how does the blast infect wheat crops? Fungal lesion on the wheat or grass wheat near farmer fields. The lesion sporulates, spores float up into the atmosphere, wind blows and spores spread, and ultimately this is infecting most of these plants. What can I do about wheat plant? One is crop rotation, use disease free seed, sow early, spray fungicides if advised by extension services, remove grass fields, do not replant seeds from a disease infected field. In fact, if a particular area is infected, this can also be burnt as well to avoid the spread. These are some of the measures that can be taken up to prevent wheat blast disease. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which one of the following pairs of metal constitutes the lightest metal and the heaviest metal respectively? Lithium and mercury, lithium and osmium, aluminium and osmium, aluminium and mercury. The answer to this is lithium and osmium. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2008. Under the standard conditions, lithium is the lightest metal and osmium metal is the heaviest metal present. Osmium belongs to the platinum group and is hard in nature, and among the given options, lithium is the lightest metal and osmium is the heaviest metal. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is controlled re-entry. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. Let's look into the context. The Indian Space Research Organization has brought down a satellite in a controlled manner after the end of its life for the first time. What are we speaking about? The weather satellite called as Megatropicus. Megatropicus was developed as a joint mission by the Indian and the French space agencies, entered the atmosphere after the final two maneuvers and burnt up over the Pacific Ocean. There are two important points that we have to note. One happens to be Megatropicus. This happens to be a joint mission between India and France. This can be asked in your preliminary examination, and at the same time we also have to know what is control entry. First, when we speak about Megatropicus, this was launched in the year 2011. Although this was planned for about only 3 years, it continued providing data on water cycle, energy exchanges in the tropics for nearly a decade. So what is the importance of this particular satellite? It helped in collecting the information about water cycle, energy exchanges in the tropic region for more than a decade. Now what we have to understand is the issue of space debris and the controlled re-entry. We know for the fact that there are large number of satellites that are launched by different countries. As they move in the orbit, they have a particular lifetime. So this particular satellite is launched for about 2 years, it is launched for about 3 years, and after a particular period of time, what it becomes is the space debris. So how are we going to get back this particular satellite into the earth and make them fall in a specific spot? That is what is called as the controlled re-entry. So for example, if there is a satellite that is passing on in its orbit, this satellite is taken off and it is removed from this particular orbit by the space agency, and when they remove it and make sure that they fall in one of the oceans by controlling its movement, that is what is called as controlled re-entry. If the controlled re-entry does not happen and this particular space satellite continues to operate in the space, it becomes a space debris. What is the space debris? This basically means the unwanted satellite which is rotating this orbit and it is not required by any of the countries becomes the waste, and that waste which is present in the orbit is what is called as the space debris. We have one of the syndrome called as the Kessler syndrome. This is a scenario where space debris increases to a point where it just creates more, and in case there is a collision between one satellite to another, there will be a series of catastrophe it can result, which is called as the Kessler syndrome. Let's say for example, there is one of the satellite which is currently in use. Let's say there is an unwanted satellite which is already done with its period, and if it goes and hits this satellite can hit another satellite, that satellite can hit another series of satellite, ultimately triggering what is called as the Kessler syndrome. So what is control entry? Control entry basically means it is that particular idea where the satellite is removed from that particular orbit and then it is ultimately made to fall in one of the areas in the oceans, which is called as controlled re-entry of the satellite. Remember, these can be very important from preliminary as well as from the mains point of view. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.